You, I will request now the second speaker, Professor Vijay Prakash, on maritime anthropology and sustainable development goal number 14, assessment, academic and advocacy for the development of fisheries in India.
Good morning to all of you. It was about 1.5 months back, I received an invitation or a news that Professor Sharma is being felicitated in UoHyd on his superannuation. I got it from Dalibandhu and subsequently from Srinivas. Then I thought I should participate in it and I felicitate from the depths of my heart Professor Sharma. Having had that type of an idea, why not I go with the paper? So I have retired long back, but I thought of doing something. And recently I had a fellowship from the ICSSR where I did some work on fishermen communities of Andhra coast. In extension to that, why not I review what is the fate of the fishermen people on one hand. At the same time, the coast is subjected to a lot of erosion due to the climate change and the sea level rise. And the IGRMS and the University of Hyderabad are interacting, and the man from Hyderabad University is at the helm of efforts of Anthropological Survey of India. I would like to put forward something which we have forgotten over the long years. Maritime communities, the communities who depend on sea, who dwell on the land. And between land and the sea, there is only a swath of just 1.5 to 2 kilometers line, which is infertile, dumped with sands, sand ridges, mangroves, and estuaries, and which are part of their habitat. And these people are struggling hard over the millennia, though they had a knowledge which they have inherited from their forefathers. Just imagine a catamaran long back was the only means of sailing across the sea. And with a simple catamaran, they traveled at open sea. And subsequently, the catamarans are modified into dugout canoes, and canoes are attached with outriggers, and subsequently they have become boats, and boats are fixed with steam engines, and subsequently they are used for cargo handling, and now the containers. And the containers are now playing a role. And what all the furniture that we have here must have been shipped from somewhere else. The sea had become an open scape where people are claiming legality over that, and the sea has become a common property. In that sense, the coastal people who have been living in poverty, in misery, and where they are taking up an economic activity which is uncertain, very dangerous, very risky, and they have to sail at the sea. Maybe they remain in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 20 days, up to. Only men will take up that type of a task. The female remain at the land. Their dwellings are so small because they should be wind resistant. And their traditional houses are such that they are very small. And they have to take care of all the children and all the family members. And there is a clear-cut division of labor between the men and the women. So in this context, with that little understanding about the fishermen communities, I have gone through literature that is available on the fishermen studies across the world. and started writing. When I started writing, really it amazed me. And there is something which we have not heard earlier, that what Professor Saha had just now said, that the maritime anthropology is a new word to me. He said, so that maritime anthropology, why is that it has not taken into the fold of anthropology in India? Maritime anthropology is prevailing, and it has been doing a lot of activity, extension activity among the, particularly the fishermen communities of the Scandinavian landscape and the oceans of the Atlantic borders. So with that aim in mind, I prepared, but if the time permits, because there are 36 slides, one after the other, I will go by explaining as and when it requires, otherwise just you can understand it. And this is the world where we are looking at. And we have an Atlantic Ocean and an Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. In fact, the roots of anthropology had started by studying the island communities in the Pacific region. And subsequently, the Melanesian, and subsequently Malaysian, and the Scandinavian, and Caribbean. That's how it had come. The Caribbean island group, Scandinavian coastal landscape, Indian coastal peninsula, and Pacific islands. All these studies are related to somehow or other with the oceans. At the time, the maritime was not there, but the maritime subsequently got importance when a world of imperial and colonial thought, colonial through the oceanic expeditions of greater distances. The people started moving greater distances, faraway places, over the sail ships. At that time, there was not a steam was there, but sail ships, and mostly rowed by the men power. Initially, as a salvage anthropology, explored through primary objective of canoe navigation and fishing communities by colonial explorers. We have been talking about the colonial people since yesterday. Early travel writers, so-called anthropologists, and even Darwin for that matter, his knowledge and his book and his thought theory had come from the islands of Galapagos. The study of primitive fishing societies by Walnowski in 1931, in Trobriand Islands of Polynesia, Hogarth study in Edison Island of Melanesia, Radcliffe Brown study in Andaman Archipelago strengthened the anthropology as a discipline. So all these strengths had come from the study of the coastal people and the island people and their economic and their attachment with the sea and the land. Raymond Fifth, study of economics of Malayan fishing industry. Fraser, study fishermen of South Island, the Malaya village, and these provided a body for the maritime anthropology. Review of anthropology of fishing noted three distinct subjects of maritime anthropology by Atkinson: modern fishing and the shipboard fishing, prehistoric marine adaptations. Ascertained that maritime fishing is one of the most extreme adaptations achieved by man. It is on the land, it's okay, but it is at the sea and along the coast. These studies focused on anthropology of fishing, fish and fisheries to conceptualize, use of common property resources, methods of navigation, risks and uncertainties. These maritime studies I have compiled could be categorized into ethnographies of fishing communities and socialization, cultural histories of seafaring and psychological factors, identity, transnationalism, and globalization, diversity of beliefs and ritual performances, gender, race, class structure. And the scientists have focused on these lines while studying the maritime communities. The History of maritime studies like this anthropology, the archaeological and historical analysis of marine and aquatic resources have resulted in the study of prehistoric coastal human habitations, which are available in the form of kitchen middens along the islands and settlements, underwater archaeology and salvage of cultural relics, patterns of salt pans, production and a trade of salt, which is very essential ingredient for our body, aboriginal fishing adaptations and indigenous navigational systems, oxygen isotope calendar, that is marine isotope stage by studying of marine areas. Pleistocene period had we have MSA 1 to 12 and the entire time to 221. Pleistocene human dispersions and development of cultural complexities, cultural and spiritual interconnectivity of islands and the mainland, tourism potential and consequence, particularly the Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Dominica, etc., food security and sovereignty of the underprivileged and the coastal indigenous communities, protection of indigenous knowledge and production systems. These are the studies which reflects the backbone of the maritime anthropology. Maritime and fisheries anthropology is a blend of different theoretical and thematic approaches, which in recent years diversified to various theories and subjects. The glory of maritime research during 1970s and up to 90s is fading away in spite of the fact that Anthropocene climate episodes needs anthropogenic public policy and resource management. And this is the statement that is given by Ashwini. And claim the ocean a sea of trade and capture the piracy. Due to vastness of the ocean, 97% of Earth's surface has connected that needs protection. Claims and counterclaims bring to light the ocean as a space of dense, overlapping, and competing jurisdiction. Anthropology of piracy have recognized the piracy productivities both on land and sea in the terms of acquisition, legalities and illegalities, modes of claim. That means you occupy one, how Antarctica is now happening. Similar sins. The seafarer sphere, downsized by the assurance of pirates, intervention resulted in secured supply chains of global shipping. And the ships are going across the world, and the piracy has come, and in fact, the piracy institutionalized their claims of entering into their oceanic belt and trespassing. Piracy emerged as a useful institution to expropriation and exploitation of the commons, such offshoring and outsourcing authority. They come how Andamanis were occupied. Initially, the piracy in Atlantic and later on the Indian Ocean. Initially, piracy has taken place in the Atlantic Ocean and subsequently moved to Indian Ocean. The Madagascar case and Somalia case studies we must have read in the news regulated the mobility. Sea of labor and logistics and capitalism. Here, the piracy moved from Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, the sea of labor and logistics. The ages of sail to steam and now container modes are central to anthropology, a body of ethnographic, ethno-historical inquiry and analysis. Maritime history of exchange and circulation. Atlantic as a space of accumulation and extraction through the violence and slavery that was in the peak during the Middle Ages when the seafaring was very common, particularly in the Atlantic Ocean. Mediterranean and Indian Ocean, rise of insurance, stock markets and warehousing eschewed them through piracy. Where the raw material, mobility for appropriation and commoditification, the sea role is phenomenal. And the containerization made it possible to the logistics and supply chain capitalism. And the people started investing on trade at sea rather than air cargoes. The study of ports, ships, and seafarers is an area of anthropological arena. Ports are as hubs of connectivity across the uneven terrain of global capital. That means you may be here, but your capital may be elsewhere invested in Scandinavia. Like that. Social life of commodities and production, circulation and consumption, logistics as systems of greater efficiency from sail to steam to container, ship as a key site, a micro-cultural, micro-political system in motion. Shipboard ethnography is essential to understand the sailing and its consequences. Sea lanes, transoceanic lanes we are now laying. Ports, cargo ships, and seafarers all traverse across geographies, new areas of anthropological inquiry. These are in an innovation. Let us come. This is the background of the how the world is thinking about the maritime and its anthropology. The Indian Ocean, the monsoon system, it's a temporal and cyclical structural wind and current patterns of mobility at sea that engendered the rise of port cities and systems of circulation and exchange from as early as 3rd century BCE. That means the ocean, Indian Ocean, has that type of a DNA where port cities have emerged along the coast by observing the natural process of oceanic winds and the currents. The rise of steamships extended and transformed the structure of mobility, brought new regions into Indian Ocean network. Canals, Suez Canal was dug out, and cables and other infrastructure projects created new ecologies and new oceanic forms of human and material mobility and communication. Global technologies destabilized traditional division between land and sea, nature and culture, surface and depths, and such new vistas to make use of ocean resources now. Ecological crisis and climate change we have been talking about, complicate divides between land and sea and human and aquatic distances. Melting of ice caps, boiling water, and rising sea levels have seemingly erased conventional distinctions between global north and global south, human and non-human, nature and culture. The perils and possibilities are not distributed equally, but we have to form a cohabitation platform because the globalization, what we call Vasudaika Kutumbam, what we see now these days. The task of social scientists and anthropologists with a holistic and transdisciplinary outlook is warranted at this moment. Now, against this background, the UNESCO had formulated long back Millennium Development Goals in 8 numbers, but it could not succeed. Subsequently, it modified into about 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Yesterday, Siv Prasad was referring what is sustainable, what is development. So 14, particularly SDG 14 is related to healthy oceans, seas are essential to our existence. We are integral of that. They cover 70% of our planet and we rely on them for food, energy and water. Yet we have managed to do tremendous damage to these precious resources. We must protect them by eliminating pollution and overfishing and immediately start to manage responsibly and protect all marine life around the world. This is the UNESCO say. Under life below water is the 14th SDG. And these 14th SDG has 10 targets. Reduce marine pollution, protect and restore ecosystems, reduce ocean acidification, sustainable fishing, conserve coastal and marine areas, end subsidies contributing to overfishing, increase the economic benefits from sustainable use of marine resources, increase scientific knowledge, research and technology for ocean health, support small-scale fisheries, implement and enforce international sea of law. Out of these 10 targets, target 4, target 6, and target 9 are more concerned to us as scientists, social scientists. So I have given T4 by the targets are fixed by the UNESCO, but we couldn't address them because only in India, only 9 states out of 29 have the coastal line, and the Niti Aayog could not get the data from different states. I'll proceed next. And to address the marine issues, these are 15 various governmental bodies and the ministries are interlinked. And they have their own data into their own jurisdiction, like that agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture, commerce and industries and sales, tourism development, urban development planning, home affairs, disaster management, shipping, fishing, ports and mini ports, earth science, ocean development, water resources, sea erosion, naval activities, coast guards, surface transport, ports and harbors, industries, coastal corridors, mines, coastal and offshore mining, ONGC offshore and onshore mining, food processing, fish processing. These are all different governmental agencies. They do have their own database about the maritime activities, maritime resources, and maritime human resources. But the integrity and integration of those data systems and synergizing them for the sustenance of the people on one hand and the environment on the other is somehow is not entangled. And this is what. The other parameter is that, and the out of Africa is our more, in anthropology, particularly in the origins of mankind, and the most strength is that out of Africa theory is subject to some type of debate, out of which the latest one is southern dispersal route. Now that has come. The southern dispersal route starts from Africa, crossing Arabia, and entering into the Arabian Sea, and moves towards peninsular India, and again goes back and goes into the Southeast Asia and up to the Australia. That is the route. And the DNA studies are also subjected to some type of support to this theory, and it is going on. The diachronic context of Indian maritime anthropology is that coastal sites of pre and protohistoric cultural evidence are there, but they are under the sea. Coastal geomorphic features like sand ridges, dunes, datable data like toba ash, and fossils are somehow or other we are getting. Coastal fishing populations practicing caste endogamy and clan exogamy. This is underlined. Caste endogamy and clan exogamy. Next, I will come. Genetic evidence of mitochondrial DNA among population, that southern dispersal route of AMH. And I have seen the pride here. We have been talking about the Indian pride and the indigenous things. The pride of India, the land and water. Mind you, my youngsters particularly, the landmass of Gondwana, a continental crust of about 1/5 of the Earth's surface, is named after the Indian autochthonous tribe by an Austrian scientist, Edward Suez, after the Gonds. The Gondwana land of that is such a huge mass of 1/5 of its size is named after the Gonds, who inhabited central India, including the northern Deccan, rose to the status of warrior kings during the medieval times, now marginalized and limited to the border areas of erstwhile princely states and subsequent linguistic states of democratic India. And most of the tribals are distributed at the margins of the development. The third largest of world's 5 oceanic divisions is variously known as Eastern Ocean, opposition to Western Ocean, and now the Eastern Ocean, Afro-Asian Ocean, now named as Indian Ocean. A ocean of that much size is named after India, and the Eurasia, once upon a time, Laurasia, as named after the Indian tribe. So the Indian Ocean is uniquely by narrow continental shelves. Why is that Indian Ocean is gaining much importance in paleoclimatic studies is that narrow continental shelves, warmest of ocean, monsoonal climate, south and north winds, hub of cultural and commercial exchange, since ancient times, key role player in early human migration and spread of civilization, now a global shipping trade hub. Just you see, those who have the landlocked people, they might have not seen most of the transport mechanism that the coastal region and the. Initially, it was catamaran. A tide logs are used for transportation. Subsequently, it has become sailboat, outrigger canoe, sailboat, motorized boat. The country-made boats are given a motor attached to them, and the steamboat, cargo ships, and continental ship. So see, from catamaran to container, all are in operation in India. You cannot see all these things in Atlantic Ocean, but you can see in the Pacific Islands area and also in Indian Ocean area. So this is some statistical exercise. The mainland coast India had 6,068 kilometer coast length, out of which islands consist it is total 8,162. Mainland coastline is 6,068 kilometers. Island coast is 2,094 kilometers. 0.5 kilometer to 2 kilometer swath. That means that is the area where the blue colored line, you can see the blue colored line, that is the only coastal area we are talking about. And in East Coast, we have 2,733 kilometers coastline. That means into about 1.5 kilometers, that is the area, spatial area where we can focus. Fishermen families total 5,67,559 families. The family size is 4, and they are making their livelihood only from the marine fishing. They know there is no other economic activity. And the density of village is 1 village per 1.33 kilometer coastline. On the east coast, contrary to it, on the Arabian Sea, it is 4.7 family size, and there is for every 2.73 kilometers, one village is there. And I have given you these are all details of the coastal length because of paucity of time. I'm skipping. And here we have ancient trade routes. Can you imagine? Of that time, 300 BCE, our people had sailed across oceans, crossing the Cocoa Islands initially and subsequently 10-degree channel. I think Vijay must be knowing how difficult to cross 10-degree channel, even by a steam ship. And they went up to Malacca Islands. And in the next one is the early to medieval period. And we, from the Indian Ocean, we sailed to such far distances up to Vietnam, and making use of the sea routes along these Sunda and Shahul Shelf regions of Southeast Asia. And in the subsequently, this is early historic earlier, and this is during late medieval period, we went not only towards the east, we went even towards the west also, crossing around the South African coast. So when I'm coming to the Andhra Pradesh, a case study I have taken. Here, ancient and medieval seaports, temples as trade centers of Indian maritime activity are there. Traders during these periods were facilitators, and we have several shore temples, shore monasteries. These are located all along the coast of the Andhra coast, and where traders were highly honored. Honored in the sense that they are the wealthy people, and that wealth is traded across the nations, and they brought the wealth that required by the society. Traders and mariner families were highly respected in the society. Temples bore testimony of social ethics. They were the centers of, in fact, upkeeping the society in its own harmony. Who are then traders, mariners? Who are they? We don't know any anthropological explanation so far. Pilots, skilled laborers. After all, during that time, sailing at sea, open sea, by non-mechanized boats and other things, we have to question about them. Temples, shrines, trustees, and ritual performers. These are the most important people that they have existed But what happened to them, we don't know. Anthropological insight into ancient and medieval seaports and temples may provide maritime contribution to Indian civilization. And these are the temples I have presented here or along the coast. You can see them later. And these are shore temples indicating marine and mercantile activity in addition to spiritual traditions. During some of the literature says that when the sailor or the traders are going across the sea to a faraway nation, all their last performing rituals are performed at these temples because these are all cybernetic temples and the where ritual performances are given. But if they come back, the society accepts. If they do not come back, but their last rites are already performed, their soul rest in peace. That was the belief system. That's how these shore temples bore testimony that we are rich at maintaining the society in its harmony. And these are the vulnerability of Andhra Pradesh. And 97-kilometer coast of Andhra Pradesh, yes sir, coming to an end. About 43% of the AP coast is under very high risk and more under high risk. And these are the risk studies, not by Nageswara did it. And there is a chance that 1 meter rise of the sea level will inundate a lot of the households that are living along the coast. And the Arabian Sea, we have 40 communities, fishing communities. And all these 14 communities are only making their living along that blue line that I have made. Then they cannot come into the inland and they cannot go the other side. Already sea is encroaching because of climatic vagaries. And from the east and from the north and from the south, and the private properties are there and they cannot expand their habitation. So they are latticed between the private properties and the natural vagaries, and they are sandwiched. And because of that reason, their habitations were so congested that a small house of this type accommodates a family. And that is the pathology of the situation along the coast. And these are the details where how the divide between Arabian Sea, Arabian coast, and the Bay of Bengal, the population density, the village density, and the family size, and the boat number, and all these things I have given. Here, the notable point is these are endogamous units. That means they still maintain their own way of living culture by means of practicing endogamy, and about 40 different communities are there. If there is in 100-kilometer area, one community is there, means mostly 1 or 2 communities only, and the villages are exclusively inhabited by fishermen only, no other community. Just imagine this is the one where the Bay of Bengal, this side, and the fishermen go to 2 nautical miles area, 10 nautical miles, and about 20 nautical miles. Beyond that, they cannot go. And they catch the fish, and the fishes come to the fish landings, and from fish landings it go to retail markets, and retail markets to peasant markets, and peasant markets to weekly markets in the tribal area. That's how the fish that was caught in the Bay of Bengal is being transported with a fish chain networks, traditional networks, into the tribal area, and that's how it goes on. And village, and we anthropologists study many village studies, and most of them are multi-caste villages. But here the fishermen villages are either inhabited by one community or 2 communities, and they are endogamous communities. And what type of village economy, what type of a tradition, what type of a harmonious way of sharing the sailing and the marketing systems need to be studied by our anthropological things. Unlike West, the fishers in the East carry out fishing on traditional and artisanal mode, thereby most of them are small-scale fisheries. Out of 8.93 lakh fishery families, 8.18 lakh, accounting to 91.1%, are traditional fishers. That means they use the mechanized boats only, not the trawlers. Mechanized boats, out of mechanized boats, and their gillnet boats are there, doll nets are, these are all details because of the time. And motorized boats are made. That means their country boat is attached with a 9 HP motor, and that's how they make use of that mission to sail across the sea. Non-motorized boats, still there are non-motorized boats that the people use their muscle power, and their 25,000 families are still there. Thereby, the Indian maritime fishing is still artisanal at low technology, undertaken by traditional fishing communities whose socio-cultural and eco-political domain is hereditary in relation to land, sea, and use pattern warrants anthropological inquiry. And these are possibility of white meat. When the white meat lands immediately, you know what happened? Uh, because of the notice, few more are there. And the natural and the cultural, as I said, natural things are there. When it comes to the cultural level, habitations and population pressure, shore temples and shrines, these are all areas where anthropologists can intervene. Lighthouse and cyclone shelters, shore shelters, ports, jetties, boat building yards, fish landings, fish drying platforms, wells, potable water. Right on the coast, we have freshwater table, that is the advantage, and salt pans, fish processing units, public buildings, and tourism. These are the only things that you can see in the fisherman habitation. And now, along the coast, we have chemical factories are coming up, petrochemical factories are coming up, pharmaceutical laboratories, thermal power plants, ports, jetties, and naval units. All these are now have become almost a curse to the traditional people who were once our pride, where the Indian heritage, Indian economy, mostly on sea trade. When the division of labor it comes, the female on land and men at sea, and they are public, and these are the anthropological things, I can share it later to the organizers, and you can go through if you are interested. Most of the fishers consume alcohol, men. Mostly men folks spend time at seashore and beach because they are shy people. Generally, they will not go and interconnect with the rest of the populations inland. Interaction with outside the kin is limited. Perform rituals on every voyage and life cycle events. But whereas when it comes to women, outspokenness both at domestic and public platform, aggressive posture or body language, use of foul language and public in public front, worshipping mostly mother goddesses. And now Indian Peninsula, coastal landscape out of Africa. The southern dispersal route refers to a theory that an early group of anatomically modern humans left Africa between 130,000 to around 70,000 years ago. They moved eastward, following the coastline of Africa, Arabia, and India, arriving in Australia and Melanesia at least as early as 45,000 years ago. The evidence from Jebel Far, United Arab Emirates, demonstrates human presence in eastern Arabia during the last interglacial, when low Eastratic sea level increased rainfall during the transition between MIS 6 and 5. Thereby, the Arabia, now it is a desert, but once it was an oasis where people moved. The quaternary coastal geomorphic features like sandy beaches, beach ridges, dune sands, lateritic formations, besides tidally influenced estuarine and shallow river mouths, and such marine-induced paleo landscapes might have provided pathways for AMH to wander and migrate along the coasts of Red Sea, Persian Gulf, and peninsular India, and then to different hinterlands and islands of Southeast Asia, the Pacific, Australia, before 20,000, 40 KA. Therefore, identification of quaternary landscapes of peninsular India and investigations into geoethnographies may provide database for the southern dispersal route of AMH. Why maritime anthropology? At present, many marine fishers are in state of crisis due to the nature of common property, open access resource, and systems of the sea such as warming, acidification, plastics, overfishing, and discharge of sewage and chemical pollution. Contemporary Anthropocene climatic regime demands suitable public policy to manage depleting resources and conservation of crucial resources. Holding hand of impoverished coastal people is essential to uplift them from falling in poverty traps as they are the harvesters of invisible protein from the depths of the sea and supply among peasants and mountainous tribals. Understanding the past resilience strategies embedded in marine fisheries culture is key to address current and future environmental problems and people, particularly the coastal and wetland ecosystems. Oceanography and climate ethnography, and crucial besides human aqua and human fish relationships to mitigate climate change. Plight of the ocean, yeah, I'm completing almost 2, 3 is hazardous. These are the things what we have to do, IK studies, navigation studies, ship gear, SSA, etc. And these are the observation. Last remarks. Indian universities located along the coastal landscape of 9 maritime states shall make use of the locational advantage to have an inter and transdisciplinary research centers focusing on human ocean, human aqua, and human coastal resilience. Interaction of continental local research appropriation strategies on timelines. Identify the maritime interactivity academics of science and social sciences, articulate theoretical and methodological issues, and contextualize the local resources for conduct of research and adoption of applied and action plan. Evolve and design subject-specific curriculum, maritime anthropology we don't have so far, to be incorporated as an elective in syllabi of UG, PG courses with internships and employment opportunities. Integration of national maritime relevant data portals of ministries. As I said, there are 15 about. Institutions consolidated the data useful for university jurisdiction, share to Niti Aayog, and advise the local authorities, stakeholders, and NGOs for scientific outreach. Bring out pan-Indian coastal cultures over the ages as the Indians were pioneers in oceanic merchandise and cultural exchange, known through heritage imprints and also southern dispersal route of anatomically modern humans out of Africa. Who were the then traders and mariners? That is the important question that we have to pose ourselves. Were these then mariners, seafarers, marginalized to present day artisanal fisheries, out of culture, carved out of cultural niche along the coast of Indian Peninsula, as they are not part of village India. Village India, we will not see them. They are excluded. Who processed the oceanic coastal knowledge on climate, weather, boat, building, navigation expertise endured for maritime vagaries and versatile over marine biota? What happened to the then pride and esteem of India? What are the traditional supply chain networks of marine fish across the inland and mountainous regions of India? Role of traditional weekly markets and protein supply chains among the peasants and tribal population in the context of global fishing and shipping. Village studies of fisheries in the context of Indian caste village studies to understand maritime induced social organization and cooperation, to monitor and integrate the data generated independently by government departments like CMFRI, CIFNet, MPEDA, NIO, and about 12 ministries, both state and central, pertaining to their respective law and jurisdiction. Compilation and consolidation of data of these government portals to synthesize in accordance with the SDG 14 indicators, to apprise and upload Niti Aayog portal. An authority in turn would advise concerned departments the plan of action to achieve the target 10 for healthy marine environs, climate, and small-scale fisheries. One of the important national bodies, Survey of Anthropological Survey of India, ANSI, Sharmagari is not here, may establish one subcenter institute each of west and east coast of India for the championing the stupendous task of saving the coast and people to ensure safety and food security of a larger populations and economy. ANSI may establish a museum come research. I think he is helm of affairs, he is here. Come research center of maritime knowledge and heritage, each of west and east coast, and may hub the university research centers to monitor for advocacy of public policy for well-being of humanity. These can only be answered by anthropologists if they draw an attention, action plan in academics, teaching and research curriculum, and perspective advocacy. Just I have given you imaginary thing is, you conduct diachronic studies, coastal prehistory and paleontology, coastal geomorphology and dating, coastal ethnographies and sacred space and common property resources. human paleontology, genetics studies, particularly mitochondrial DNA studies, navigation, harvest, trade, in order to generate the pan-Indian maritime cultures. Just is only a metaphorically diachronic approach to a prism of maritime anthropology by taking into account the coastal prehistory, the coastal ethnography, so that it may emit from the bottom fish supply chains, maritime ecology, coastal human ecology, coastal corridor of AMH, indigenous knowledge, maritime heritage, navigation history. All these we can bring out if you have ethno-historical and with the diachronic approach of the maritime communities who have sustained us over the long years. And the first photograph, that is the way that the fishing is taking place in the West. Now, in our country, in our peninsular India, the fishing is taking place at this mode. Just you see the nets and see these shelters where the boats are anchored, and that is the sea. And that's how it happened. Thank you very much for the organizer for having given me an opportunity to share. It's only a small ICSR project. I made it like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vijay Prakash. It was a wonderful paper, wonderful simply. And I think this maritime anthropology should be included in the